Patrol, ladies and gentlemen, episode 3, Nostalgia Patrol. It's your boy Icon with a DC TV review, and we are going over some Doom Patrol. So, in this particular episode, we've apparently solved the zombie butt apocalypse, and you would think that the team would be celebrating and everybody would be happy. Just the opposite, because everybody still has their own personal ish that they're going through. So it starts off with Jane. Jane's in the room. She's trying to think about what she's supposed to do as far as like moving on and like having a life for herself outside of the girl. And then she sees all the puzzle pieces that are on the floor that was left in her hand. And as she's trying to go through the puzzle pieces, trying to figure them out, she ends up seeing an eye in one big particular piece. She looks into the eye, and then all of a sudden this mist comes out of the eye, and then she passes out. She later then goes to Cliff, and she told Cliff later on in the episode that when the mist hit her, she got like this I guess we're gonna say like orgasmic feeling, and it made her yearn for more, and she doesn't know what she's supposed to do. And then she told Cliff, she was just like, I'm not supposed to want anything, aside from helping the girl. And Cliff was like, fuck the girl. He was like, what do you want? Now, my theory about this, because they did mention the chick who was in the Sisterhood of Dada, the woman that had like the gray hair, the one that created the mist with the accent. She did express interest in Jane last season. She did actually say, she was just like, oh, I hope you don't leave, child. And, she was just like, I want you with me. She actually did say that she wanted Jane with her. So we're not done with the Sisterhood of Dada, or specifically that particular character, because she is going to come back at some point during the season, and she is going to come after Jane. Larry's still struggling with the negative spirit because Keeg is still hiding in the walls, and Keeg still won't talk to him. And then Larry's upset because he doesn't know what to do. Rita is sulking because she's still mad that they didn't pick her to be team leader. And then while she's upset because nobody picked her to be team leader, this magical flyer shows up on her door, and it's saying that come down to the theater so we can help celebrate Rita Fall. And then she's just like, she's like, thankfully somebody wants something to do with me, or someone appreciates me. So then she gets mad and she goes down to the theater. While she's at the theater, she's watching a movie. It's actually one of her movies. She's watching highlights of her own movies. And then while she's watching this movie, this smoke ends up coming up into the movie theater, and then she gets sucked into the movie that she's in. She tried to fight it at first, but then eventually she was just like, oh, what the hell? And then she just dove right in and ended up playing the part, that was in the specific movie, because she was bouncing back and forth through different movies. In one of the films, one of the lead male characters had given her a necklace. And then, when she put the necklace on and she was like doing her scene and giving out her emotions during the scene, the necklace started filling up, which we later find out it was filling itself up with her emotions that she was expressing during the scene. Madame Rouge ends up bringing the team together, everybody except Victor, more on him in a second. She ends up bringing the entire team together, and then she's just like, oh, we need trust, and we need a team building exercise, and we need to trust each other and everything. And then everybody's like, fuck that, because the trust has been broken. And I don't understand how the trust has been broken. That point got brought up at least 4 times in the episode, where somebody had mentioned like the trust between the team being broken. But I'm like, aside from Rita being upset that they didn't pick her to be team leader, I really didn't see what the big like broken trust thing about it. Was that whole thing was just weird to me. But anyway, she was just like, Rita has this thing going on, and we're gonna go and support Rita Fall. And then then Larry doesn't want to go, and then he's just like, fuck that. Then everybody's like, come on, Rita. And then they trying to like get him to go, and then he ends up saying fuck it, and he goes. They go down to the theater, and then when they go down to the theater, they're sitting watching one of Rita's movies, and then that's when it dawned on Larry that the dialogue was off, because there was a moment where Rita was like being overly dramatic in one of the scenes. And then the male actor who was counter to her in that scene, he was just like, will you just get through the scene already? Because I haven't seen my family in years or months or something, and I'm tired and everything. Rita's not the only person who was sucked out of their time period, wherever they were, and placed into this film. Like, there are multiple people that have been yanked up and trapped in this movie, and they're being trapped to play parts in like a Rita Farr film. But because Larry actually watched her films and watched her stuff, he knows that something's off, and he was just like, yo, something's not right. And then while they were in the theater, and then that's when like Madame Rouge had, she was just like, yo, I think Rita's actually in the movie. And then everybody was like, well, no shit. And she was like, no, like actually like in the movie, like that's really her. And then that's when the theater started filling up with smoke. And then Madame Rouge turned into a bird and got the fuck out of Dodge. And everybody else, fell victim to the smoke, and they got sucked in. And now we're all trapped in Rita's, collection of films throughout her career. They were trapped inside a horror film, which wasn't scary at all, but but Cliff and Jane for some reason were afraid, and I don't know why Cliff was scared, because I'm like, bro, you made it out of metal, but they were hiding in the closet. Larry went somewhere else, and then he bumped into this random dude who was like, oh, your friends are trapped, and, you know, the doctor is trying to get something from Rita Farah. We have to go save her immediately. So then Larry went with that person, try to go help everybody else. They find Jane, they find Cliff, and then they get sucked into another film, which was a bootleg Star Trek movie. And then while they were sucked into the Star Trek movie, then the team meets up together. Rita's like, oh, she's like my friend. She was like, you shouldn't be here. It's a trap. And then, you know, Jane was like, we know it's a fucking trap. And then, you know, but they're just like, no, we're here nonetheless to try to save you. And then the guy who was with Larry, he basically like did his like magic thing, because obviously like he turned on Larry, and then he put Larry, Cliff, and Jane in like this cage when he stripped them of their power and put them over like a fire pit, and said that if Rita didn't give the doctor what the doctor wants, then he was going to kill her friends. And then Rita was just like, well, what does the doctor want? She's like, what did I ever do to you? And then that's when the doctor showed up. When the doctor came out, she was just like, oh, I want the thing that you were never supposed to have anyway. And I'm like, emotion? Like, that didn't make sense. So then Rita ends up saying, she's like, fine. It's like, if that's what you want. She ends up crossing the bridge to get to her friends. She gives this sweet monologue about how she loves them. And although she, you know, they have beef, and although like they have issues from time to time, they don't get along, they're her family. She loves them dearly, and she would rather die before anything bad happens to them. And then before she had a chance to save them, well, actually, while she was given like that emotionally felt monologue, the jewel on her neck ended up filling up completely with like her emotions, like her emotional like pride or whatever. And then that's when the doctor took the pendant from her, and then the doctor walked off with her emotions in hand. And then after that, the bridge that Rita was on collapsed. Rita was about to die too. And then right before Rita died and before the rest of the team got burned alive, Keeg finally decided to show up, because after Madame Rouge escaped, she went back to the mansion and got drunk. And then she was just like, oh, I don't deserve to be leader. I don't deserve friendship because I turned on everyone. So while she was in a drunken state, Keeg came out of the walls. He was looking at Niles Coulter's notes, because Niles Coulter actually had notes on the doctor. And Madame Rouge originally, she was looking up the doctor so she can find out how to stop the doctor, but there were no notes in there about how to stop the doctor, and that's when she just got drunk. But then Keeg read, and then, you know, Keeg somehow magically ended up in where, you know, in one of Rita's movies. He ran up on the dude who originally had put them in the cage to begin with. Keeg collided with that person, and then when he collided with that person, I guess it knocked everybody out of the picture, and then the whole team ended up back in the movie theater, but everybody was awake except Rita. Like, Rita was like knocked out, which makes sense because she got her like emotions sucked out of her, so I guess she's like emotionally dead. So it would make sense that Rita wouldn't be around. And then, like I said, they picked her up and they went back to the mansion. Now Cyborg, for some reason, he met up with his boys. They went to a laser tag restaurant and they were talking. Here's the part that pissed me off. When they first got to the restaurant, they saw Victor and they was like, oh, Victor, Cyborg, what happened to the Cyborg tech? And he was like, I got rid of it. And they're just like, oh, but you were awesome. You had like the mechanics and the gun and everything. He was like, I got rid of it. And then he was just like, oh, but you were a superhero. And I'm just like, why are y'all overly like, you know, the man said he got rid of it. He must have got rid of it for a reason, but they kept pressing on like why he got rid of his power. So then later on, they're having a conversation, they're talking, they're trying to catch up as boys. And then while they're talking, somebody had said something about Cyborg, because they were talking about his mom. And they were just like, yeah, you know, like we missed you at your mother's funeral. And he was just like, you know, he had to deal with it on his own. And plus he was still in the hospital. He was still trying to recover. And then one of his friends was like, oh, why are we still talking about Cyborg? Why are we talking about Victor? I'm like, first of all, you brought him up as soon as he got to the restaurant. Like, Victor didn't come into the restaurant and say, hey, everybody, Cyborg, worship me, booyah. Y'all started talking about him. And then when the conversation kept going, that this guy got mad, he got jealous. And that his whole attitude was like really annoying. But there was another person who was supposed to be like his best friend. He started acting funny towards him. And because there was even a moment where they were just like, yeah, like your best friend, he built like, you know, some children's outreach thing where kids build robots. And then Victor was like, hey, I'd like to see it and maybe like volunteer and help out. And then he was like, no thanks, I need people I can trust. And I'm like, bitch. And so then later on, they ended up having a laser tag contest. And so Victor and his friends joined the laser tag contest because back in the day they were the champs. While they're doing the laser tag, Victor and his best friend, they're sitting there trying to blast people, and then Victor said to him, he was like, yo, go around the corner, I got your back. And then the guy was like, oh, well, that will be a first since you got your back. And that's when Vic was like, come on, bro. He was like, what's the problem? He's like, because you act like a little bitch right now. And then he was just like, oh, you left us, and we were supposed to be boys, and we were in Detroit, and I needed my friend in the mean streets of Detroit. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, what is happening? He's like, you weren't there for me, man. And then Victor was like, bro, I was fucking dead. Like, I died. My dad had to put me back together with screws and duct tape and all sorts of things. He was like, I just lost my mom. I had to emotionally process that. He was like, but we needed you too, man. And I'm just like, where are we going with this? Is his, like, because at first I thought his whole thing was, oh, Detroit was in trouble. The city of Detroit was in trouble. Crime was everywhere. Like, the people needed you. And instead of, like, coming back home to help your neighborhood, you decided to join the Justice League and be a superhero and forget about the little guy. I thought that's where he was going. His whole monologue was just about the fact that Cyborg didn't talk to him for X amount of years. And I'm just like, are you, like, in love with him, which is why you're acting like that? Because nobody is that emotionally disturbed over the fact that they haven't seen their best friend in 10 years when their best friend got into a severe accident and had to be literally rebuilt into a half-man, half-robot. Like, and they said you're, like, crying, like, oh, but what about Detroit? What about me? And I'm just like, all right, I'm done with this dude. Because either, like I said, either you secretly have feelings for him, which is why you're upset, or you just a bitch. Like, hey guys, like, it wasn't that deep. It legitimately wasn't that deep for him to act that way. It was a little too much. But then I guess they apparently got over it. They finished the laser tag, and then, like, Victor said goodbye to everybody. And then the first person who was acting, like, shady towards him in the beginning, he didn't even really have an issue. His problem was that the other guy had a problem, and I'm just like, these are your friends, bro? Like, he was better off with the Doom Patrol. So then he said goodbye to them. They shook hands, did the soul brother handshake and hug and everything. And then he told the last dude, he was just like, yo, I'm proud of you, man. And then the guy just walked away. And I was just like, this is awkward. Like, this is awkward and weird. I don't understand what happened. So then Victor goes back to the mansion. And then while Victor's in his room, Madame Rouge is drunk, passed out at the table. Then that's when the rest of the team came back with Rita. And then when they came back, then Victor and Madame Rouge was like, what happened to Rita? And then that's when, they were just like, I don't know, but something's happening. Because when the doctor walked away with Rita's emotions, she said that Eternus, I forget the Eternus or Eternusis or some shit. Basically, like, when Willoughby was talking about, like, oh, like, there's a bigger threat coming, whatever, this is it. So the zombie butt thing has been put on hold. And thank you for tuning in. The zombie butt thing has been put on hold. So we're going to revisit the zombie butt thing later, the zombie butt apocalypse, but now we're focused on this Eternus thing where there's, like, this powerful being that's out to do something that nobody knows what it's out to do, but apparently the first step of this master plan of evil that even got Willoughby shaking in his trench coat has to do with Rita's emotions. So I assume he's going to attack each individual member of the Justice League, the Doom Patrol, one by one, until we find out what his plan is. And then after we defeat this person in the Doom Patrol season finale, then I guess we'll revisit the butt thing, because right now the last remaining butt on the planet is still hanging out with the Asian girl, the Asian doctor at her apartment. But the zombies are presumed to be dead. So I don't understand how I get why the alien butt thing, could potentially be a thing, but the zombie aspect of it, now we got to find a way to turn this thing into a zombie because all the zombies are dead. Like I said, and look out for the Sisterhood of Dada, because they're going to come back. They're going to come back as well. I don't know where the show is going from a villain standpoint, but it is interesting, and we'll see what happens from there. Like, is Madame Rouge going to get, the retribution that she so desperately craves? Like, is Cyborg going to get his tech back? What's going on with Cliff? Is he finally going to touch his grandson when he gets more feeling? Because they did say, if the nanites do their job, he not only will get feeling back in one finger, he'll get feeling back in his whole hand. So by the end of the season, does Cliff get that? Why is Rita's emotion so important to whoever this Eternus person is, and where we go from here? So check out my other videos. I am doing a live stream for Street Fighter 6 because I did get accepted into the beta test. So I'll be doing that over the next 4 days. I'm also going to be doing Gotham Knights because right now, guys, the series finale of Warrior Nun apparently happened. I was not happy that the show got canceled because I did enjoy Warrior Warrior Nun, but my season finale review is up on the channel, and Stargirl is over too. We unfortunately lost Stargirl, so right now the only show we're going to be reviewing is Doom Patrol and playing a little Street Fighter, a little video game, some Gotham Knights until something else pops up. So check me out as always on Twitter and Instagram. Until next time, check your nostalgia at the door, and until next week, we're out this